Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you here along with Tariq Spence. Tariq, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Get to watch some sports. Enjoying my time here on the show.
Yeah, and Pat Duffy. What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good to see you. Always great to see you.
Got the Sabres jersey. We're celebrating Stanley Cup playoffs in earnest this week.
Okay, well, we're going back. They did the jersey reveal. They're going back to the classic jerseys, and what better to celebrate that than the vintage, super old school Gilbert Perreault. So, how you like me now?
Very nice. Hey, look, college football kind of stepped into the spotlight this week, Tariq. And for me, it's like the worst possible situation is that the Power 5 conferences actually split on the idea about whether to come back and play, with 3 playing and 2 not. Where does this leave us as far as that sport goes?
Basically, everybody else deciding whether or not they're going to play if they haven't already, and canceling the season. I don't see how you've got so many conferences that their presidents are making decisions that are tough. I don't see how you have a college season. I mean, you're going to have already, Big Ten, Pac-12. I mean, all of these different conferences. ACC, as of this point, as we're recording this show, hasn't made a decision yet, so we don't know what they're going to do. This leaves a little college football left, a little opportunity for kids that are going to play and schools that are going to play. But I've got a bad feeling, and I had a bad feeling when we started this. You're not going to have the college football that you really want. No fans in the stands either, too, Duffy. I mean, it's not the same.
Well, I find it very interesting this week where when they wanted the football to happen, these schools, because, it's a moneymaker for these schools, the presidents decided, it happened in Tennessee in particular, they went to the players, the football players, and they said, do you guys want to play? And there was a tweet. It was a resounding yes from the players. We would like to play, which is interesting because now you want to listen to what the college athletes want, right? Because after that, you should have asked him, hey, would you like benefits and to get paid to play football? Because if you kept the conversation going, you would have found out a bunch of stuff what these players wanted. These kids are being used as pawns, man. That's what it is. And I find it also very interesting. Tariq, you brought up the college presidents making a decision. The reason why, as of now, the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 are playing, it's not the college presidents making these decisions. Scott Frost, head coach in Nebraska, did a press conference the other day saying, if we're not playing in the Big 10, we will find somewhere to play. And he did that press conference next to the president of the University of Nebraska. And the president of the University of Nebraska didn't say a word. Your head football coach is the mouthpiece for what's happening here. What is happening here, no matter how you feel about it, is proof positive that these college athletes are being used for people above them to make money and gain power, and it is disgusting.
I would go even backwards. Let's not call them student athletes. Let's call them athlete students. Because if you want to play, they are becoming athletes first. You can barely keep kids on campus at your university, yet you want these kids who bring in tons of money, millions upon billions of dollars throughout college football and throughout sports in general. And help fund other college sports. Let's not forget about this. College football, college basketball help fund Division I, Division II, Division III, other sports as well. That's how much revenue they bring in. It's not an easy decision, but it gets to show you exactly how strong the president is at that university as opposed to the coach. The coach runs Nebraska, not the president.
I see a couple of dynamics working here. First of all, the Mid-American Conference, the one that UB belongs to, is what got the ball rolling by coming out. First semi-major conference says, we're not playing. Well, the reason they're not playing is because these larger conferences have already declared that they're not playing non-conference games, which is a large chunk of the income that the smaller conferences get. So it's easy for the MAC to wash their hands of it. The second thing is, I'm shaking my head wondering, why can't these Power 5 conferences get together on something? And then I look at what's happened, and this is a total power play. These 3 conferences that have said they're going to play football are putting themselves as a Power 3. So now it's a 3+2 instead of 5. They have a lot to gain by bucking the system here, and I don't think this is about player safety, Pat.
They also have a lot to lose by bucking the system. God forbid something terrible happens, right? Right now, let's talk about recruiting strictly, right? If I'm a coach in the SEC or the ACC, I can go into a kid's living room and say, see, these northern schools do not care about football. We are going to take care of you here in the ACC, the SEC. But if something goes wrong, if there's an outbreak or a coach gets sick or somebody dies, now, from a strictly strategic standpoint, Ohio State and Michigan and Wisconsin and these Big Ten schools can walk into a kid's living room, look at their parents and say, I care about your kid's safety, where these other kids just care, or these other schools just care about making money on the football field. It's a very, very risky proposition, not just for health, but for optics for these conferences to continue to play.
And remember, these kids are not adults. They're not adults fully yet. I understand they're over 18 and they make the decisions, but you're still going into, just like Duffy said, someone's household, sitting down and say, let me have your son for 3 years. Let me turn him into a man. Let me get him ready for whatever is coming. Let me educate him. And you making a terrible mistake of putting an athlete out on the field when there's a possibility of a pandemic or an injury or whatever it may be, irresponsibly, that reflects back on you and the organization.
Last thing, they will say that, Tariq, but aren't these shots really being called by the lawyers at those two conferences that said they're not playing? This is a legal issue.
Yeah, this is a legal issue. But this goes back to what Duffy was talking about before when we're talking about what do we want to do with these athletes? Are they athletes first, students second, or are they students first, athletes second? And you don't want to run the risk of any kid, whether they play football or not, getting this. I mean, look at the universities in our area. They're going through precautions and quarantining kids from out of state. All of these kids are coming from different states, high COVID numbers. And now they're going to be on your campus, your responsibility. It's a different ballgame now. No one wants to get sued.
We're at the Rochester Press Box, and we're going to talk Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay and Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Thanks for watching and welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. Talking Buffalo Bills this week, Pat. A couple weeks ago, we dealt with Star Lotulelei opting out of the Buffalo Bills and offering, I said you guys did a tremendous job defending the decision of his that he made for his family not to participate. So last week it was Tre White seemed to be on the fence. He decided to play, but he didn't come back to the Bills without saying that I'm really disappointed in the fans for getting on my case to such an extent that I might not want to play for them. Same case, right?
Yeah, so here's the thing. The few people that were tweeting at Tre that he should be playing, can we not do that anymore, right? This guy's the best player on the team, and we need him for a very long time. He wants to stick around. He's been very vocal about it. So, any way to not upset that apple cart would be ideal, right? I mean, I was a little shocked that, look, if you know Tre White, if you follow him on social media, if you hear his interviews, he's a really smart guy. He was the valedictorian of his high school class. The guy is well-spoken. He's opinionated. You very rarely see it from him. I was shocked. He must have been really bothered for him to come out as hard as he did after, some folks decided to come after him and question his decision.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is a lot of the players are getting these reactions from social media. I mean, a lot of them are comments left underneath websites or places where they go Twitter or Instagram. I guess the other end of this, too, is the unsuring, saying how they're unsure about what they want to do. And I think it's the waffling that gets players really in trouble. I mean, we've run into that before with players using it as an excuse to get out. With the Mets recently, a lot of players have been wondering if Yoenis Cespedes, used it as an excuse to get out. I think that's the unsurable end of it. But even players that have just said, I'm opting out for family reasons or health concerns, or I'm having my first kid, they're getting it too, which just goes to show you there are a lot of Bills fans that are, no, not now. You can't leave now. When we were, 5-11, yeah, fine, whatever. But now that we could potentially be a contender, you're going to leave now? What difference does it make? It's a pandemic. It's out of his control. No one controls this thing. So if he doesn't feel safe, don't play. I support him 100%. But the fans, some of them, I'm sorry, they just won't grow up.
Pat, I think you have to consider the source too. I mean, social media being this, a lot of times it's just a big cesspool of negativity. It serves Tre White's cause to ignore it, doesn't it? Just to forget about these people.
It does. But some people can do that. Some people can't, right? I mean, I understand. Look, I'm with you. I would not have said anything. But we find out in the tweet that he puts out that the grandfather of the mother of his children died from COVID. So, all right, it struck close to home. And on top of that, look, you look at other players around the league. You saw the Kevin Durant story from this week, right? Some guy calls him a weirdo. He then finds that guy's girlfriend on social media and likes 3 of his tweets, right? There are just some people, and I think that competitive spirit, being a professional athlete, plays into it. Like, you just can't ignore it. You need it to fuel you, and if someone isn't into it, well, I'm going to show you why you're wrong, and I'm going to make my point.
But I don't think social media represents us well. It doesn't represent me at all.
Yeah. They're loved, though. I mean, to be honest with you, he's probably loved by tons of fans, and he sees them all the time. But then it only takes 20, 30, 40 of the, I can't believe you're going to opt out because of COVID-19s to make you feel like maybe I'm not as loved as I thought I was. Or maybe I'm not, maybe Buffalo, I have a wrong perception of Buffalo and the fans, because if they love me, they would be considering where I'm coming from before telling me how could I leave because of COVID-19 concerns. He's ultimately going to play, but you start realizing to yourself that not everybody loves you if they don't see value in you.
In a perfect world. We are the Rochester Press Box, and Like It or Not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, Tariq Spence, Pat Duffy. Tariq, like it or not, the St. Louis Cardinals, who have managed to play only 5 baseball games so far this season.
Absolutely hate it. You can't even judge how good the team is going to be. I don't understand. The Marlins went through this as well. The Marlins were 7-1, getting ready to take on the Mets. And I'm like, oh, man, the Marlins are having a great season. They're 7-1. They played 8 games. The Mets played like 15 games. I mean, you don't know how good your team is yet. After 8 games, sure. I mean, I just don't understand how you're going to reward a team or judge a team based on the games that they played and won as opposed to losing. I don't like the fact that these COVID games are still going on. We still have problems with it. But I think if a team gets COVID, they should be penalized for it. You can't just say, oh yeah, the record is 5-2 or the record is 8-1. But because they went through COVID, you shouldn't be able to have a great record based on the fact that you haven't played 7 to 8 games. So I'm not impressed with the Cardinals. I still need to see more.
You just said that the team ought to be punished for getting COVID. I think that's an interesting concept.
I think they should, because you want to know why I say that? Because getting COVID should be a team effort. You're basically trying to stay away from this virus, and if you do what everybody's telling you to do, you should stay away from it. There's plenty of teams in Major League Baseball that don't have COVID. How did that happen? How did the Marlins get it?
There was an element, certainly, of these teams bringing it on themselves. Hey, Pat, like it or not, Nebraska talking about going it alone with their conference opting out of the college football season.
I find it weird that Nebraska's the school that's going to wave the flag, right? Like, you would have thought it would be a bigger program like Ohio State or Michigan. Jim Harbaugh's been very vocal on social media the last couple of days about how he wants to play, his players want to play. Nebraska is different because I always look at Nebraska as a Big 12 school anyway. I forgot they were in the Big 10 because they're not relevant really anymore. But, I mean, I don't really see a problem with it. Like, let Nebraska go do what Nebraska's going to do. And I think it would be interesting if every couple of years we did shake up these college football conferences, because you get used to these games that aren't really rivalry games, but you got to see them every year. And maybe that school's playing style doesn't fit the conference that they're in. I would be for every 5 years, let's take all of the conferences with the exception of the major rivalries like Michigan and Ohio State and schools like that, shake them all up, see what happens. It gives us a better view of how good coaches are and how good these schools can be on a long-term basis.
I think you put Nebraska back in the Big 12 where they belong and slide Syracuse over to the Big 10 where they belong.
Ooh.
This is right. I like that. This is because it's my idea. This is the Rochester Press Box, and Unfinished Business is next.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us on the Rochester Press Box. It's time for Unfinished Business. Pat Duffy, start us off.
Every guy grows up dreaming of being a professional athlete. Then we hit puberty and we realize, the overwhelming majority of us, we don't have the ability to be a professional athlete, but I think I figured out a way that we could compete. Earlier this week, Game 1, Tampa Bay Lightning, Columbus Blue Jackets, Stanley Cup playoffs, a 5-overtime hockey game. They played 2 full hockey games plus 10 minutes. Now, the Lightning end up winning 3-2. Jonas Corposalo, goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets, sets a record, 85 saves in a playoff game, and loses. But as I'm watching the beginning of the 5th overtime, I start to realize something. You know, I'm a beer league hockey player, weekend warrior. Some of those guys out there starting to stumble around. Passes weren't hitting sticks the way they should. These men were exhausted, and rightfully so. But I also realized, if you were to put me in a Tampa Bay Lightning uniform, didn't put a name on my back, and just threw me out there fresh in the middle of the 5th overtime, I'm pretty sure I could have blended in and no one would have noticed. Like, that's how exhausted these guys were. So let's talk about the NBA, right? Same kind of situation. If you had a game, which would the equivalent would be a 10 overtime NBA games, playing 2 games and a little bit more, I think the majority of recreational league basketball players could put a uniform on, step out there, and completely blend in. I will never be a professional athlete, not by a long shot. But after they've played 2 full games and then an extra 10 minutes, you wouldn't notice if I was out there wearing a sweater.
I wouldn't notice. I'd be cheering for you just like you would be any other
Thank
player.
you. Thank you.
What occurred to me watching Hard Knocks on HBO in the brand new season that features the LA Rams, or LA Chargers, or whatever team it is at this particular point, is Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn basically is the head coach of the team and had to announce in the first episode that he had COVID-19, which led me to believe one thing. We're all worried about player safety, right? But what if a head coach actually does get COVID-19 and has to quarantine for 2 weeks out of the NFL season? That also gives an opportunity to the assistant coaches and other coaches around to rally the troops and try to get them through the season. Now, COVID-19 is a huge issue for a number of players that aren't quarantined or not in a bubble. But for NFL teams, what are you going to do when your head coach, who's been preparing all season long for this entire season, is out for the next 2 weeks, if not beyond that? Have you seen the ages of these NFL coaches? Some of them are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, pushing 70, and cannot afford to get COVID-19 for their own personal health, yet they live and die for the NFL. This is both a tragedy and an opportunity for a number of coaches to step up if need be. But you better have a backup plan for your head coach and your players if you're planning to go on with the rest of the NFL season.
So we have these unwritten rules in baseball. We've talked about them a lot. Don't slide too hard into my second baseman. Don't take too long rounding the bases on a home run. Don't bang on a trash can if you think you know what the pitch is coming. You know, that kind of thing. So where does threatening my health and my livelihood fall into that? Where does jeopardizing the opportunity that baseball has to play through this pandemic, what exactly are we supposed to do with Zach Plesac and Mike Clevenger, who are 2 players for the Cleveland Indians who thought it prudent while in Chicago to go out and visit with friends in violation of the protocols designed to set up against spreading the virus? This is a violation of trust. It's an unwritten baseball rule. These guys have been sent home on quarantine, and perhaps to think a little bit about what it's like to put their own selfish interests first, and maybe to consider what the landscape is going to be like for them when they return. And they apologize, and they say that they'll do better next time, if there is a next time. That is our unfinished business, and that is the Rochester Press Box. Guys, thanks again. Great as always, Tariq.
Thank you. And I think Duffy should go out in the next jersey wearing a last name of Youngblood. They'll never know it's not him.
That's a deep cut right there. That's a deep cut.
Thank you all for joining us. guys. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again next week for the Rochester Press Box.